think they live now in the US.
They live in the US. I thought they couldn't get into the US.
I thought you couldn't get into the US.
We stopped trying. we were thinking about going to the US over the last 4 or 5 years. We were trying to work out a way to do it, and but now with the current situation, to get a visa to go to the US, you have to book a tour, and then you have to get the work permits after you've booked a tour, and it all costs a lot of money. And okay, but now even if you have the right work permits, you might not get in because it's all gone terribly random.
Yeah, there were even arrests of German tourists that tried apparently to work.
I don't know. It's all a bit mental. What's happening there, but we'll see. Interesting times, huh?
Yeah. What? Where are you from?
Where am I from? I was born near London. I moved up to Yorkshire when I was quite young, and so we're based in Bradford. The band's based in Yorkshire and Bradford.
How old were you when the workers' strikes were on?
When the miners'
strikes were on?
1984, 84, 85, so I was 28.
Did you go then to social clubs, to working social clubs?
We did quite a lot of stuff around the miners' strike era. We're doing a lot of sort of money raising and hanging out in a village called Church Warsaw and all this kind of thing, yeah.
Were your father a miner? Was your father a miner?
No, my father was born in Canada. My father was a writer, among other things.
And who made you angry and go striking for the miners?
Well, I wasn't on strike, I was a musician, but I grew up with a sense of social justice, I guess. I mean, the early Thatcher years, in the early 1980s, which coincided, with the Reagan in America. This is the beginning of neoliberal economics, this idea, Thatcher's famous speech, there is no such thing as society, there are individual men and women and there are families. And this idea that it's a dog-eat-dog world, that you should let the rich people get rich and then we'll all benefit. And this kind of started in the early 1980s. And it's such a fucking great lie. And 45 years later, we're still some people are still adhering to this same idea. But actually what happens is trickle-up economics. This is what happens. It's a crazy world. I think that I've never really believed in cancel culture from the left or the right. I think that music is music. But we when we're in the early 1980s, we signed to EMI, and that it was a multinational company that had an electronics weapons division, and everybody sort of said we shouldn't sign to them. I don't know. The cancel culture is a strange sort of. Generally, I'm not in favour.
Do you listen? What's your favourite podcast? Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I like podcasts of stories. This is what interests me. I don't listen to lots of podcasts about politics. Stories, mysteries and strange things that happen in the world, of which there are a lot. But no, I don't listen to that many podcasts.
You probably got asked a lot, but how was playing 86 with David Bowie in
We played with David Bowie quite a lot of times, strangely. We did in '86. We did the Berlin glass spider thing in front of the Reichstag. It was very exciting. It was like the first time it was 30,000 people or something. The first time we'd ever played to a big audience like that. Yeah, it was exciting. What I really remember was that 10 minutes before we played, there was a knock on our door, and David Bowie walked in to say, "Have a good show." And I always thought that was very generous. He didn't need to do that. You know what I mean? He was a generous man. And we played with him again in the 90s in Schuttdorf and down in the south of Germany. And then again, we played about 6 concerts with him in 90 something. So actually, we played with David Bowie quite a lot. He was a very sweet man.
Why do you think it's generous that your fellow musicians?
It's strange, but it's strange that it's him lots of times. It hasn't been lots of other people that it could be. It just seems to have been David Bowie at different times.
But you did hang out with him. Did you visit him in his flat with Iggy Pop?
No.
Do you what are you reading at the moment?
Reading. What am I reading? I've been reading my very favourite novel, which I read every now and again, is by Mary Renault, and it's called The Mask of Apollo, and it's set in ancient Greece in the time when Sicily was Greek, and it's a story about the politics of the time and philosophy, because Plato is in it, but it's told by an actor, so you learn lots about kind of Greek theatre and theatre generally. So many things are kind of the same as being in a band, and I don't know, I think it's a fascinating novel where she is the best writer of that, you know, classical Greek history.
And is it about monsters and gods, or is it...
Well, there's gods, of course, because it's ancient Greece, but she sort of understands the relationship between people and gods better than anyone else, I think. Any other writers of that era. I quite like the idea of Greek gods, because you know, if you're going to have a god that's made in the image of man, which we do, you have a god that's kind of got human attributes, then having different gods for different human attributes makes lots of sense to me.
And do you have family in the army? Who was in the army?
No, I've got a big family and they all do different things. No one's in the army.
Do you, so many questions. Who did introduce, did you go ever to art school?
No, I went to college and I dropped out and started a band.
What job did you wanted to take? Studying peace
studies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never finished it though. It was kind of a mixture of politics and history and studies of conflicts and so on, conflict resolution. But I didn't really want to be there. I didn't really want to be in a classroom studying. I was 20. I wanted to be out and doing things in the world. So I never finished it. I dropped out. I'd met Stuart Morrow, who was our first bass player. Then I met Jules, who was our been our artist from that time. And then a little bit later on, I met Robert Heaton, and we made this band. Sort of, here we are still.
But did you start? Did you study peace studies with a plan? Like where you wanted to go to?
No, I never had a plan for life. I still don't have a plan for life, and now I'm old. Life happens. The idea of I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life when I was young. I didn't think I was going to be a musician. I loved music. It was massively important to me when I was a kid, but I didn't think I was going to end up in a band. Happened by accident.
Did you read the Melody Maker or the NME?
Didn't read any of them very often. There was at the time when we started, there was Melody Maker, NME, and Sounds, and we looked at them, but I didn't have a particular.
What's the song The Hunt about?
The Hunt is a kind of vigilante song, actually. It was about at that era, the early 80s, heroin became very cheap, and heroin hit all sorts of different areas of Britain in not a good way, obviously. It was really about that. I have an ambivalent feeling about that song, but often I've written songs from the point of view of somebody that I don't agree with. There's One of the Chosen, My People Right or Wrong, Vengeance, obviously, where you make a statement according to a character or a situation, but it's not meant to be a philosophy. With One of the Chosen, I think especially that's like written from the point of view of a religious fundamentalist. I'm not a religious fundamentalist, but I do remember I had a moment when I was a teenager of being a religious fundamentalist, and I remember how great it felt. And I think it's interesting to write songs which are not about myself. Different characters have different lives, different feelings, different beliefs, and so as a writer, I sometimes explore other people, not me. I don't believe in music as, that music presents a philosophy, or lyrics present a philosophy. I'm not really interested in that. There's so many different ideas and so many different people in the world. I think they tell stories more than anything else.
It's the song about the police that hunts people down.
No, it was a song about being a vigilante, really, more than anything else.
That means?
When no police, no summons, no courts of law, not outside the law, you're creating justice. It's a dodgy area, but an interesting one.
Where did the heroin come from?
Where did heroin come from? Back in the early 80s? I don't know. I guess Pakistan, Afghanistan, but I'm not an expert on it. I see what it does to people.
With all the trade, the trade getting the industrialization hit down, and because it was not just the miners, but the trade from Britain to fabrics.
Textile.
Yeah.
Textile. Well, Bradford is a wool town. It was based on wool. It was a very rich town until the Second World War, and after the Second World War it became very poor.
You recorded a live album 2024 in Germany.
Here, in this club.
In this club.
Well, we did 2 live albums. We did one from the Templeton with the orchestra, and one from here, which was just punk rock, which was the next night. There were 2, we had the opportunity to play with an orchestra at the Tempodrome, and we did this, and then we thought, well, if we're going to do something so big and expansive, we're going to do the opposite the same weekend. So we came in here and did kind of punk rock for 2 nights.
And how did you get the idea with playing with
The orchestra.
yeah, not Lost Paradise?
It wasn't so much our idea. I think it was Shiran Yinon who did all the arrangements. It was more that she really wanted to do it. And we thought that it was sort of economically not viable, but apparently it was. So she did all the arrangement, and we talked about how to do it. And there've been lots of examples of bands with orchestras, but most of them are really bad. And we talked a lot about how to do it. That instead of being a band with an orchestra, it should be like a 40-piece band. That everything should be integrated. And I think we did it pretty well, actually. I think it's pretty good. We only had 2 days rehearsal and 1 show, but it came out very well, I think.
And how long did the orchestra had the music?
Shiran wrote the music over a period of months, and then the orchestra all arrived, and we had, like I said, we had 2 days. They hadn't read it before. They just, with 2 days rehearsal, they were reading what she had written, and 2 days.
And with what song? I normally read. I like to read all the song lyrics. I forgot them. With what song did we open?
Devil's Bargain.
And what's this song about?
The song is about a friend of mine who lives in New Zealand. It's about him. I write a lot of songs about people that I know. I write their story or my feeling about them, or I like writing about other people, like a character study.
Do you write scripts as well?
Sorry?
Scripts.
How do you mean?
Movie scripts.
No.
Have you ever been to New Zealand?
Yeah, I have been to New Zealand. I was there last month, but only for 1 day. But I did go to New Zealand in the 90s. But it's written about a friend of mine that I lived with in England, and then he moved to New Zealand.
But with what song are you gonna open today?
Don't know.
When do you decide this?
About an hour before we play.
And did you like punk rock?
Sorry?
Did you like punk rock?
I don't know what punk rock means. It's a strange. In the 80s, it became a form of music where you have to play loud guitars and shout. But it wasn't that. In the late 70s, it wasn't a form of music. It was a cultural revolution. And it included poetry, and it included art, and it included all sorts of things. And it was it was about attitude, and it was about art being, the purpose of art is the communication of spirit. It doesn't matter what you do. So punk rock was also what I remember in the late 70s, somebody banging spoons and reading poetry. You can do anything. It isn't a form of music.
And how was this, where did you hear the first about it? Being on the countryside, and then...
I guess my first experience of what was happening in 76, sort of in England, was John Peel, really. So.
Did John Peel give you a call?
Sorry?
Did John Peel give you a call?
Later, we did do a session for John Peel. Yeah, later, in 1983 or 4 or something. I can't remember now. It's a long time ago, but I remember listening to John Peel in the late 70s and all this music that was happening. My favourite band of that era were the Ruts. That was the best gig I ever saw, was by the Ruts.
In London?
No, in Bradford.
Who did introduce you to philosophy and the levelers and concepts of the New Age and stuff?
Don't really know what you mean.
Because in Wikipedia it says you were quite interested in the levelers, suffrage.
What meaning the 17th century English Revolution? Yeah, I think I learned about this in school, I guess. It's the beginning of the ideas about democracy and so on. After the revolution, all revolutions, they breed all these ideas, but actually every revolution is followed by a military dictatorship. But that whole era just interested me, as part of British history, the English Revolution, 17th century. I guess I learned about it in school, or from school, I guess.
And in London, then you did hang out with punks, with the punk rock.
There was a big punk scene in Bradford in the late 70s and early 80s. Yeah, and a whole group of us used to hang out together. It's a long time ago now.
And do you listen to a lot of news? Are you always up to date, or?
Sometimes I am. Sometimes I go through periods of, looking at the papers every day on what's happening, and sometimes I don't really look at stuff. Not every day. I'm not sort of, what's in the news today. I'm more interested in the sort of general feeling of where everything's going. This strange, dangerous time.
Yeah, what do you think about the Ukraine war? What will happen?
The what?
The Ukraine war.
What will happen? It's difficult to know what will happen. I think it's very difficult to know what's going to happen everywhere.
And
I can't see into the future. I'm more one of those people that lives by the day. I'm not so interested. I'm interested in the past in the sense of how did we get here. I'm interested in the future in the sense of where is everything going. But mostly I'm in the day.
Do you get to sightseeing on tour and?
No, hardly ever. If we have a day off, yes. But on days with gigs, when you're on tour, basically you're tired all the time. So you think, you wake up at midday or something, I think, I'm going to look at the city, and you just, brain is like a fog, your body, it hurts, it's not, you just sort of do not much, and then you sort of focus on the 2 hours you're going to do tonight.
And did you ever play in Indonesia?
Indonesia, no.
In Thailand?
No.
But Australia?
Australia, and we did in Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong last month. Hong Kong was really interesting. I really liked Hong Kong actually. And it has made me interested to go to the Middle East, the Far East. We haven't ever really done much in the Far East. We go to South America quite often, and I really love South America. But the Far East we haven't worked much.
Tell me, how's Hong Kong? Is there lots of security, or is it?
It's interesting. Obviously, it's changing. Chinese have more control over it. And what the Chinese are doing, they want political control, but it's quite useful if it's economically slightly separate. It's useful to them. And the people that live in Hong Kong, I think, it's changed perhaps more than they wanted. It's changed less than they feared so far. It's changing all the time. China is the future. And I just like the people, and I like the vibe, and I like a lot of really nice people.
Are you into all AI and the tech stuff?
I don't really believe in AI. It exists, but the idea that I think people are immensely stupid or immensely lazy. This idea, we can give the future to computers because they're cleverer than us. No, they're not cleverer than us. They can do calculations faster, but they're not cleverer. Computers are basically stupid. They can only do 1 or 0. And they can calculate everything 1 and 0 very, very, very fast. But now we end up more and more, because of computers, we end up more and more in a binary world where everything is a 1 or a 0. You have to choose sides all the time. And everything works by algorithms, and algorithms are not accurate, they're just self-strengthening. And the human brain is chemical, it isn't 1 and 0. We're capable of holding all sorts of different ideas simultaneously. We're not a 1 or 0 species.
Are you interested in astrophysics?
In?
Astrophysics.
Astrophysics?
Yeah.
Only in the sense that I can look at the universe and go, wow, but not in the sense I understand how it works.
What's the album Navigating the Stars about?
It was mostly, not only, but it was mostly songs about the sea. A love album to the sea, mostly.
Did you ever live in Brighton or by the sea?
No, I never lived by the sea. And a little bit after that album, I did a trip across the Atlantic in a freight ship. But everyone thinks that I wrote the album while I was in the Atlantic. But no, I wrote it. I think that creation is a kind of desire to find another world, and so actually the album was all written inland, dreaming about the sea, not by the sea.
But how many people were you with there?
Well, across the Atlantic?
Yeah.
Well, I was on a boat that was a freight ship, so I think there was 23 crew. I was the only passenger. So it could take 5 passengers, but I was the only one. I only had 1 passenger.
Why did you do that?
Interesting.
But it's quite lonely, no?
It's a week from English Channel to Newfoundland.
Okay. Did you have Wi-Fi?
No, of course not. There's nothing out there, no phone signal, no nothing.
And was it scary?
Not at all. No, it was lovely. We did have 2 hurricanes, so it was very rough, the sea. But it's a massive ship, and for 7 days and nights, that massive sea. But I wasn't scared. I loved it.
And how did you get the idea? Do you have friends that are seamen or?
No, I don't actually. I do know a few people that seamen, but no, I can't remember where the idea came from. I don't remember. I just went online and said you can travel around the world on these things, container ships. It's primitive, it's primitive. It's not like a cruise, and sometimes you just have a little cabin and there's nothing to do. You just look at the sea.
Did you see whales?
I did see one whale, but that was in the English Channel actually. Didn't see in the Atlantic. Didn't see anything. So yeah, I mean you can go anywhere in the world on these things. It's not super cheap, but it is interesting. And it's interesting to see how much of the way in which containers, this sort of metal box, which was invented in the 60s, I think, how it really changed the world. That this massive world trade that happens now is the result of the invention of this metal box. Okay, there was freight ships before, but they took a long time to load, and now it's this really industrial scale movement of stuff around the world. So the ship I was on, 2,000 containers or something, big ship. But when you get out in the middle of the Atlantic, you think this is a big ship, but actually it's not that big. There's nothing out there.
Did you get what was in the containers?
Everything. I have no idea. 2,000 containers, all different things.
And what did you have to help, or
No.
did you hang out with them?
Yeah, you hung out with the crew. 23 crew. They were all Indian, except the captain was English actually, but the crew was Indian. And yeah, just hung out and talked to people, and they were working. And you just sort of sit and look at the sea. Lovely.
Yeah, you can also take this Trans-Siberian train.
I don't know about now. I do know somebody that went from Berlin to Beijing actually, and then down through the Gobi Desert. But I don't think that's an option at the moment. And less interesting, I think. You want to look at birch forest for a week? No. Look at the sea for a week? Yeah.
Did you ever live in Brighton?
No, I've been there a lot, but I've never lived there.
And do you still dislike London?
I don't love London though. I don't really like big cities. My partner's from Paris, so I spend quite a lot of time in Paris. And as big cities go, Paris is a nice one. But I don't, it's the nicest big city, but I don't really like big cities.
Yeah, I couldn't live on the countryside. I'd get bored a lot.
Things happen at a different speed, that's all. You can just watch insects for hours.
And did you on the countryside learn horse riding?
Not really very well. I can ride a horse sort of, but I'm not good at it. I never had a horse.
Did you ever live in Ireland?
Ireland? No, I've been there a lot. Oh, I did actually live in Ireland lived in Belfast for a year in the 70s. And I go there quite often. I really like Ireland. I have an Irish name. My father was born in Canada, but Irish. So yeah, I always like Ireland.
How was Belfast?
Interesting.
What
it was in the middle of the 70s, so it was a time of the Troubles. I like Belfast. So the people are I just really like the people. I think that's all I can say.
It's hard to I find it hard to understand their dialect. The dialect in the north of Ireland.
They talk like that through their nose. I can do it.
And how Belfast still has 500 walls.
500?
Yeah, I think
500 what?
walls, like
Walls.
like little yeah, from left.
Yeah, there's less and less. I was there last year and driving around. It's very different from when I was there now. Much easier, safer.
And how was but there's still riots and
There's riots everywhere. Sometimes. Is Northern Ireland mended? No. Is it? There's a kind of uneasy peace, shall we say? I mean, it's all to do with ancient history and tribes. You know, it's a tribal world, and that's to the fore everywhere. It's not to the fore in Northern Ireland now because they had so many years of that tribal war that people don't want to go back to it. I understand, but it's always kind of, there's a potential for it.
is it like football?
No. No, it's much deeper than that.
And
Football's football's an interesting, you know, I loved football when I was growing up. It's a sort of artificial tribal war that allows people to enter into all the emotions of it usually without people getting killed.
then happy touring.
Thank you.